Hello, book connectors and music connoisseurs. I got a video, but I wanted to do. I guess this is more of a preface to the book I just finished reading. So, come on in, and before I get started, let me just welcome you back to either the Book Connector or the Music Connoisseurs channel. Both are here on YouTube. I'm your host, Black Devil of the Book Connection, and I am Ms. Music, your host on the Music Connoisseurs channel. So, I read Loretta Lynn's autobiography, Coal Miner's Daughter. And then I read the sequel to that one. It's also called Still Woman. Well, it's called Still Woman Enough. But I finished reading Coal Miner's Daughter every bit of about 2, maybe even 2.5 weeks ago. But it was just so much funny stuff in that book. So what I have decided to do is to go and I wanted to make a video telling you the things that stood out to me and what I found funny. I wanted to get all of the giggles out of the way in this video. And then the next one, it will be the actual story of Loretta Lynn. So here we go. Now, to me, Loretta Lynn, she was funny. She was very feisty, and at times she was outspoken. But I think that apparently she was a great storyteller too. And I mean a storyteller. I don't mean she told lies. I just mean she was a great storyteller. Oh, she was funny. But now, she reminded me of myself and one of my sisters. I'll tell you when she reminds me of us. Okay, right off the bat, chapter 3. Loretta Lynn said that she had always been a little mouthy. And that part is me, I guess. But I don't know in my family how they could say it's me, because we are that way. We're all outspoken. But anyway, Loretta said she always did have a mouth. But she hated washing dishes. She hated it with a purple passion. That would be me too. Now, the difference between Loretta and me is I never thought to hide the dirty dishes, or throw dishes away. Now, one of my children, who shall remain nameless, and I dare say my youngest child, we've called her throwing silverware away. I'm like, well, go wash all the rest of the dishes. Why would you just throw the silverware away? So Loretta said what she would do was hide the dirty dishes. Well, one time her mom came in the kitchen, and her mother was the disciplinarian in the family. She said her mom came in the kitchen and caught her hide some dishes. She grabbed a broomstick and cracked her upside her head. Her dad comes in and sees her do that to Loretta, and he was like, no wonder she ain't got no sense. And she said, that's my daddy. He's always going to be there for his baby girl. Now, Loretta was close to both parents. She was. But if she just had to say which one she was the closest to, she thinks her dad won out just a little bit. And I dare say it's because he wasn't a disciplinarian. That's probably what it was with her. But she said her dad said, no wonder she ain't got no sense. She said, and it took me, you won't believe it, but it wasn't until after I got married before I realized Daddy wasn't exactly praising his baby girl. Okay, now, Loretta, when this happened, she was 11 years old. And if you don't know her story, she was married at age 13. So, and I'm thinking, but dang, it still took you 2 years before you realized your daddy at that particular time was not complimenting you. Now, if she had done it at 11 and she got married, like, I don't know, 25, 30 years old, I could see why. That's when I would go, wow. Because I would be like, yeah, she might have forgotten it or whatever. But she was only this happened 2 years before she got married. So I wasn't necessarily surprised that it took her 2 years before she realized it. Okay, so that was that. Then her dad's her dad had a brother named Lee. She said that, chronologically speaking, Lee was an adult, but he was weird to the kids because he had a childlike mind. He was grown, but he had the mind of like an 8-year-old, and he was always just drumming on things. He was always he was just a cut up in the neighborhood. Well, one day, some word got out that some grocery store, nobody could rob that grocery store because the store owners had a very vicious guard dog there. And so Loretta said she was singing one day. He walked past her and he complimented her on her singing and told her, I listen to you when I'm working and you're going to be a beautiful woman someday. She said that made me feel so proud. But then the store came up and she said, Uncle Lee said, that dog will be eating pork chops for supper. So she didn't know what that meant. But that very night, he went right on and robbed that store while the dog ate the pork chop he fed him. And the sheriff was waiting on me to was waiting on daybreak to take him in. He said that he wasn't necessarily a good robber. And I'm guessing that's because his mind was so childlike. But she said he wasn't necessarily a good robber. Because another time he decided to go shopping. So he went to this clothing store, found something he liked, went and put it on, and walked out of the store. Well, I have heard of people doing that. But here's the difference in the people I heard that did it and her Uncle Lee. Lee left all of his old clothes. He just walked off and left everything, including the baseball cap that had his name written on the inside. And Butcher Holler was not a big town, so he was probably the only Lee in that. Lee Dollarhide was his name. And then another time, he went and stole a chicken, trying to take it home. So he crisscrossed the trails in the around the local community, trying to throw the police off of his tracks. But he spilled chicken feed and led straight to his own front door. Oh my goodness, that was a trip. Then now, what was not funny was he ended up being deleted. And Loretta says she's not quite sure that it was, she said he went to jail about 8 or 9 times. He just kept doing one thing after another. But when he ended up getting deleted, she said the police, they don't believe the police had anything to do with it because they really and truly, it had to be real bad for them to haul this man in. So I'm like, it couldn't have been that bad if they hauled him in 8 or 9 times. I just hope that it wasn't all in one year. She didn't say the course of the time that he went to jail. All she does know is there was some moonshine missing, and then Uncle Lee ended up, missing. And she talked about how her parents really didn't have money to give him a proper burial. So they just sat up with his body for 3 days and something. I guess people pitched in because they did get him buried. Okay, that was one story, Uncle Lee. Now, Loretta was a petite person, small and short stature. I think she barely was 5 feet tall. And sometimes I do believe that she might have suffered from short people complex or short person complex or something because she was always scrappy. And so this reminds me of my sister. One summer, one of my sisters, I cannot prove this, but I really believe she made a pact with herself to get in trouble every single day, or at least it seemed like every day, one whole summer in particular. Sweet people get in trouble every day. So Loretta was at school one day, and I guess at recess they were playing, oh yeah, I gotta tell you this before I tell you the other part. Now, Butcher Holler had its own dialect. And so they would use words that I guess that's all they ever heard. Most of the people in that area were not educated even basically. Loretta, at the end of the 8th grade, she was through with all she got. And she was real honest about struggling to read and write. But anyway, getting back to this part, Loretta said they were at school and they were playing the game of Mayhide. She said, that is Butcher Holler's word for the game hide and seek. We call it Mayhide. She said, now, this is Webb's dictionary, not Webster's dictionary. We have our own way of saying stuff. And I never would have guessed make hide was the same thing as hide and seek. So, okay. So her cousin was the one having to go find people. And he tagged her. And she said, oh, you old turd. Well, the teacher overheard her say that. So she took her in and she gave her a spanking. So next time they were outside, all of this was the same day. Somebody asked her why she got a whipping. And she was like, oh, I got a whipping because I called my cousin a turd. Well, that same teacher heard her say it again. So she took her back in there and whipped her again. This went on so much that Loretta said she ended up getting 9 whippings in one afternoon. So my sister, I guess she got a redeeming point because we didn't get that many whippings in one day down there. And then at the end of that, she said, after the last whipping, her brother finally just decided to sneak out the window and run home. I'm like, y'all couldn't just walk through the front door and go home. What's school out? School was out, but she said her the older brother just sneaked out the window and ran all the way home. She said, we got a new teacher shortly after that, and that's when I felt safe to go back to school. Now, I know we got whippets growing up true enough, but we didn't get whippets. We didn't get more than one whippet for the same offense in the same day. So, like, if that had have been my sister, yes, she probably would have got a whipping that first time. But if she went out there and did it again, then we move on to a different punishment. You ground it. Or you have to wash dishes a long time or something. But, yeah. And then, too, I don't know, it's just something, I don't know why they would allow teachers to whip kids that many times in one day. But she said they messed around because it was hard for them to keep teachers because they're up in the mining towns and you just don't have very many people who even know they exist up that way. So it was hard for them to get teachers. But one time they ended up with a one-armed teacher. And she said they just would not leave bad enough, or, bad enough alone. She said he wore us out with that other arm he did have. And then he left. Okay, so that was Loretta fighting. Loretta also had a female cousin, Marie, and they were always in cahoots. They would be fighting one minute and laughing and getting into all kinds of things the next minute. Now, I don't know if Marie and her male cousin were brother and sister. I just know that they were both her first cousins. So she said her mother smoked cigarettes and drank coffee, but she didn't want her children to do it. Now, Marie used to chew tobacco, and she named 2 or 3 different brands of tobacco. She would chew whatever she could get because they're kids. Now, one time, they got a hold to something called rabbit tobacco. I don't know. I know she said it was rabbit tobacco. So Loretta decided to join in that day and smoke because she didn't really do the alcohol and the smoking. And so she said her mama saw some smoke coming from the cabin. And she got in there and she accused Marie of smoking the tobacco. And so then Marie ratted Loretta out too. So they both got a whipping. Loretta didn't mind though, because the next day on the way to school, she whipped Marie. She said Marie was bigger than me, but I was meaner. And when I get to telling the story, you'll see that it served her well in the long run, because she famously said it was not one time that her husband hit her that she didn't hit him back twice. So it was like a 2-for-1. So Loretta said the same cousin, one day, they were supposed to be at home cleaning up. So they came across some homemade beer. One of her brothers had made, and he had put it up. And so they got into it, and they just started, they not fussing or fighting, they just drank the beer. She said, we got dog drunk off that beer. And they knew that they were supposed to be washing the floors. So they had filled the tub up with water, and they poured a can of light in the water. Well, then that beer had kicked in by the time they added the lye to the water. So they just poured water on the floor and just started skating around, having the best time. She said it was about an hour later. And she realized, oh, dog, we were supposed to be cleaning up. So they got some brushes and they just scrubbing, cleaning, thinking everything was good. Then Loretta looked down at her brush one time and said, gosh, Marie, dang, these floors really were dirty. Look at all that. But it wasn't dirt. They had messed around and scrubbed all the paint off that kitchen floor. They had messed around and scrubbed all that paint off that kitchen floor. She said, Mommy whipped us good when she got home. Oh, my goodness. Lord, she stayed into something. Okay, they had one doctor who eventually started being the local doctor up there in that area. But he was from whatever bigger city it was in that county. He went to med school. He had gotten him an airplane, his own private plane. He was married. He had him a nice house in the city, but he came up there and became the doctor. In fact, he delivered her first oldest two children. She met the doctor through the guy who would later on go on to become her husband. And so, after she was telling the story, time has gone by. She was married and had children and all that stuff. But she said he was like, you wouldn't believe some of the stories people tell when they come to the hospital and stuff. One patient came in, and the doctor saw him when he came in. He was at the elevator. Well, Butcher Holler residents don't say elevator. In fact, they didn't know what to call it, so they decided to call it a press, Press. But they used that word for closets because the elevator had doors, so everything was a press. So he said when he got to the elevator, the patient was almost white as a ghost. And he was like, what's wrong with you? And the guy said, Doc, now, there was a lady who got in the press and the doors closed. And then when the doors opened back up the next time, she wasn't nowhere to be found. Loretta Lee said, see, we didn't know big words like elevator. We didn't know. Well, he just thought that the lady just disappeared into thin air, or she disappeared behind it because he was debating whether or not to get on the elevator because he knew that woman had disappeared. I just wonder now, how in the world is it that, okay, I get that maybe you weren't used to elevators and you didn't know how they functioned, but that must have just been that particular patient. Because Loretta them knew. But anyway, the funniest, Loretta, from time to time throughout her years, she would have blood poisoning. So, like, the first time she had it, she was still a child. She was at home. She ended up in the hospital. Her cousin Marie came to the hospital because Loretta was lonesome. And so she said they laughed and talked all that day. And when they got ready to go to bed, Marie just climbed into the bed with Loretta. And in the middle of the night, the nurse came in to give Loretta a shot. But she grabbed the first leg she saw, which unfortunately happened to be Marie. And so Marie got the shot. Loretta said, Marie didn't appreciate getting that doggone shot. And I started laughing because I'm like, I don't blame Marie. I wouldn't have appreciated it either. But Loretta said she knows that she heard the doctor and the nurse talking. I don't know if it was that day, earlier before Marie got there or not. But she said she knows she overheard the doctor and the nurse talking, and the doctor said something about he might have to amputate Loretta's leg. But Loretta said that the doctor says he honestly didn't even remember having that conversation. And I'm like, and even if the conversation took place, it shouldn't have been right there in front of the patient, should it? I don't know. But then the funniest story he told her to me was this woman came in one day and she says, Doc, I need you to check my daughter. She hasn't had her monthly in about 3 months. I guess the doctor just forgot the people he was working with. He asked that lady, well, do you think she could be having sexual intercourse? That lady said, Doc, I don't know. But if it's all she needs, give it to her and put it on the medical card. And then here goes Loretta explained it again. See, we didn't know big words like sexual intercourse. I told you, this is Web Dictionary, not Webster's. Because she had already had to explain about the behind, and then the press, then the closet. Now, the lady, not knowing the definition of sexual intercourse, Lord have mercy, I thought that was. But she said her husband told her that they were going somewhere. The doctor and her husband were going somewhere, but they were going by mule. And so her husband told the doctor, Doc, when we get ready to go over this puddle of water, you're going to have to do something to make the mule raise his leg because he was blind. And the doc said, you mean tell me we out here on a blind mule? I ain't riding on no darn blind mule. So he hopped off the mule. He walked about 2 or 3 blocks. He had to come on back and get on the mule. And they went on about their merry way. And these are the stuff I just refuse to go back and reread yet again because I'm pretty sure, oh yeah, she never heard of pantyhose before. She hadn't quite hit the big time yet, but she was heading in that direction. So one time she got a pair of pantyhose. Somebody bought her one, a pair. And she didn't know that they came in different sizes. So she's out on stage to singing her heart out. And the pantyhose just fell down right around her ankles. She said, I didn't know they came in different sizes. And I'm thinking, well, whoever gave them to you evidently didn't know it either. She said she just stopped and took her shoes off and slung them pantyhose on and finished and slung them like across the room or something and finished singing. Then another time she was playing her guitar. She was playing her guitar and one of her bra straps broke and it got to be very uncomfortable for her. She stopped and she went and took that off, so they'd see her take her bra off. But then one time she made a dress, and she said, she said, I used to make dresses growing up because my mommy and daddy couldn't afford to buy dresses. She said, but for some reason, she don't know how it happened, but she made it like a size too small for her. So when she was putting it on, she noticed it was fitting a little snug. But she thought, okay, yeah, but once I get it on and get zipped up, I'll be all right. But that ain't what happened. She got it all. And she said she was just wriggling because she looked like today I guess you would call it sausaging out. She said, I fell down on that stage and I just kept wiggling and wriggling and I kept hollering to the man, help me, help me. And everybody in the audience thought it was a joke. They thought it was part of her act. She said, I like to never have gotten up off of that floor in that thing. So, needless to say, that was the last time she wore that dress. I guess it had been a while since she made her one. She probably had to go back and practice all her sewing skills and stuff. But this is it for this particular video. I'm going to title it Giggles, Loretta Lynn, and then I'll come back sometime later and give you, like I said, her her autobiography. So, subscribers, thank you for being subscribed. Visitors, please feel free to join us. And everyone, please make sure to like, share, comment respectfully, and by all means, make sure you have your notification bells set to all so you'll know every time I upload a video. And in the meantime, book connectors and music connoisseurs, remember, as long as there's something to read or listen to, there's always going to be time to move, groove, and grow. And until we do all of this again, be safe out there. Have a wonderful work week. And God bless.